Next, we have specification number 4, which asks us to identify, on diagrams and images, the larynx, trachea, lungs, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, and associated capillaries. In this part, we'll be focusing on the main structures of the human respiratory system. These include the larynx, trachea, lungs, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli, and the capillaries that are closely associated with gas exchange. We'll learn how to locate and identify each of these parts on diagrams and images, and understand their roles in the process of breathing and gas exchange. Now, let's look at all the structures in the human breathing system. The image here shows a clear diagram of the human respiratory system, with all the major parts labeled. This system is responsible for the process of gas exchange, bringing oxygen into the body and removing carbon dioxide. Starting from the top, we have the nasal cavity, which is the space inside the nose where air first enters. Then there's the oral cavity, or the mouth, which also serves as another pathway for air intake. Next is the pharynx, the throat region that connects the nasal and oral cavities. Just below it, we have the larynx, also known as the voice box, located in the neck. From there, air passes down through the trachea, or windpipe, which carries air toward the lungs. Surrounding the lungs is the pleural membrane, a double-layered covering that protects and cushions the lungs. The trachea then divides into two main branches called the bronchi, each leading into one lung. Inside the lungs, the bronchi further divide into smaller and finer tubes known as bronchioles. At the end of these bronchioles are clusters of tiny air sacs called alveoli, where the actual gas exchange takes place. These alveoli are surrounded by a network of capillaries and veins, which transport oxygen into the blood and remove carbon dioxide from it. The lungs themselves are the main organs of respiration, protected by the ribs, which form a bony cage around the chest. Between the ribs are the intercostal muscles, which help in expanding and contracting the chest during breathing. Finally, below the lungs lies the diaphragm, a dome-shaped muscle that plays a key role in inhalation and exhalation by moving up and down as we breathe. So, overall, this image gives us a complete overview of the human respiratory system, showing the entire pathway of air and all the structures involved in breathing. In this specification, we will focus specifically on the main organs of the human breathing system, and learn how to identify them on a diagram or image, as well as understand their structure and function. Alright, let's go through the main organs of the breathing system one by one and learn how to identify them, along with their structure and function. First, we have the larynx. This is also known as the voice box and is located in the neck, just above the trachea. When you look at a diagram, you can find it right after the pharynx, appearing as a small box-like structure. It's made of cartilage and contains the vocal cords. The larynx helps produce sound when we speak and also directs air into the trachea while preventing food or drink from entering the airway. Next is the trachea, or the windpipe. It looks like a long tube running down the neck and chest, connecting the larynx to the lungs. On a diagram, you'll recognize it by its ringed appearance. These are C-shaped cartilage rings that keep the airway open. The trachea's main job is to carry air to and from the lungs safely and efficiently. After that, the trachea divides into two branches called the bronchi. You can spot them easily on a diagram as two tubes splitting off from the bottom of the trachea, each leading into one lung. Their role is to direct air into the left and right lungs. Then we have the lungs, which are the largest organs in the respiratory system. On a diagram, they appear as two large, spongy structures on either side of the chest cavity. The lungs are responsible for taking in oxygen from the air we breathe and releasing carbon dioxide from the blood when we exhale. Inside the lungs, the bronchi divide into even smaller tubes known as bronchioles. These look like a network of very fine branches spreading throughout the lungs. The bronchioles help distribute air evenly to all parts of the lungs and carry it to the alveoli. At the ends of these bronchioles are tiny, round air sacs called alveoli. In most diagrams, they look like small clusters, similar to bunches of grapes. This is where gas exchange actually takes place. Oxygen from the inhaled air passes into the blood, and carbon dioxide moves from the blood into the alveoli to be exhaled. Finally, surrounding each alveolus, we can see a network of tiny blood vessels called capillaries. These appear on diagrams as very thin lines wrapped around the alveoli. The capillaries are where oxygen enters the bloodstream, and carbon dioxide leaves it. This close connection between the alveoli and capillaries makes the process of gas exchange quick and efficient. So, when identifying these parts, the larynx, trachea, bronchi, lungs, bronchioles, alveoli, and capillaries, always observe their position, shape, and connection with one another. Together, they form the complete pathway that allows air to move in and out of the body and ensures that oxygen and carbon dioxide are exchanged effectively. Alright, now have a look at this table clearly stating the main organs of the human breathing system. We'll go through each of these organs one by one to understand their structure, location, and function in the process of breathing. Let's begin with the larynx, which is also known as the voice box. It's located at the top of the trachea in the neck region. The larynx is made up of firm cartilage, forming a box-like structure. Inside it are the vocal cords, which vibrate when air passes through, allowing us to produce sound. Besides helping us speak, the larynx also plays an important protective role. It ensures that air moves into the trachea while preventing food or drink from entering the airway during swallowing. Next, we have the trachea, commonly called the windpipe. This is a long, flexible tube that runs from the larynx down toward the upper chest. It is supported by C-shaped rings of cartilage that prevent it from collapsing, keeping the passage open for air to flow freely. The main function of the trachea is to carry air from the larynx down to the bronchi, forming a clear and stable pathway for breathing. As the trachea reaches the chest area, it divides into two branches known as the bronchi. One bronchus leads to the left lung and the other to the right lung. These bronchi act like the main airways or major roads, which further divide into smaller branches inside the lungs. Their purpose is to distribute air evenly to both lungs so that each part receives enough oxygen. Now, let's talk about the lungs themselves. They are the largest organs in the breathing system, soft, spongy, and filling most of the chest cavity. The lungs are covered by a thin membrane and are well protected by the ribcage. Inside are mammalians of tiny air sacs called alveoli, which play a vital role in gas exchange. The lungs' main function is to take in oxygen from the air we breathe and remove carbon dioxide from the blood, helping our body maintain a healthy balance of gases. Within the lungs, the bronchi continue to branch out into even smaller tubes known as bronchioles. These are fine, delicate airways that spread throughout the lung tissue, making sure air reaches every part of the lungs. The bronchioles also help control how much air enters different sections of the lungs, directing it efficiently towards the alveoli. Finally, at the end of the bronchioles, we have the alveoli, the tiny, bubble-like air sacs. They have very thin and moist walls and are surrounded by a network of tiny blood vessels called capillaries. This is the site where the actual gas exchange takes place. Oxygen from the air passes through the alveolar walls into the bloodstream, while carbon dioxide from the blood moves into the alveoli to be exhaled. So, as we can see from this table, air travels through a well-organized system, from the larynx to the trachea, then into the bronchi, through the bronchioles, and finally into the alveoli, where the real magic of breathing happens. This continuous flow allows our body to take in life-giving oxygen and release waste carbon dioxide efficiently.